Hello, BookTube. Hello, friends. Welcome to LizziefayeLovesBooks. I'm Elizabeth, and it is time to share with you what I read in the month of May. So, my May reading month was fantastic. Now, don't let my numbers fool you. I finished a total of 59 books, but most of those were children's books because I do something in May called Book a Day in May. I've been doing that challenge with my friend Beth from Soul Stained Ink for several years now. Mainly, we got started doing that because of Middle Grade May, which of course started years and years ago. And the thought process was, okay, they're middle grade books. We should be able to read one a day. Well, that's not true for me. Middle grade books still take me a good bit longer than a day for the most part. But children's books are not a problem. So I started a project a couple of years back with my daughter Emily, and for the last 2 years we have read a Dr. Seuss book every day in the month of May. And because we have exhausted most of the Dr. Seuss catalog at this point, I decided it would be fun to explore the Caldecott winners. If you don't know about Caldecott winners, they are awarded to an illustrator for a significant contribution to children's literature in the United States every year since 1938. So we started with the older decades, and we were able to read all of the books from 1938 through 1970, and a couple of the newer ones as well, which I'll talk about that in a little bit, why I went ahead and read a couple of the newer ones. But we will continue that project next year. I don't know if we will try to stretch it out into 3 years because there's really not enough for another 2 months. So maybe we'll pick out a few of the longer ones to read between now and next May, and then plan to go ahead and finish them up by May of next year. Anyway, I plan to do a playlist of all of the Caldecott winners, and I will do them by decade, much like I am doing my wrap-ups of reading Newbery winners. So in this video, I will just show you the covers and tell you the titles and probably the author and illustrator of each book, but I will go into more depth of, what's in each book, the type of artwork, and, how much we enjoyed it and things like that in those videos where I break down the Caldecott winners by the decade. So in addition to the 35 Caldecott winners that we read, we also read 7 other children's books, and not including middle grade books. And then I read 3.5 middle grade books. And then I read 2 more books that were Amish books right at the beginning of May, because I had set out to read or listen to one trilogy by Beverly Lewis for Amish in April, and I only got 1.5 done. So I finished up the other half of the second book and then listened to the third book. So I did finish 2 Amish books right at the beginning of May. I read or listened to 3 books for book club. I listened to 4 nonfiction books that were adult nonfiction. Now, I did read some nonfiction books with my daughter, but the 4 I'm counting are adult books that I just read for myself. And then I read 3 cozy mysteries. 2 of those were for read-alongs, and then I had another 2 books that I read for another read-along, and those were general fiction. And altogether, that totals 59 books. So let's just get started. Now, I had filmed part of this video a few days ago, and I ran out of time, and I thought I would just add on to it, but in the end, I decided just to start over because as I recall, I was making a bunch of mistakes, and I was going to have to edit a lot. I'm still probably going to have to edit a lot. But anyway, the thought of going back and editing that footage from several days ago, I was not looking forward to it. So I thought I'm just going to start over and try to make it try to tighten it up a little bit, make it brief, and get through these. So I'm not sure where I want to start. I think I'll do the Caldecott winners last, just because they would, they'll take up the most amount of time. That way, if you are not interested in just seeing what I read and you want to come back and watch the actual wrap-ups of those, then please, I would welcome you to do that. All right, so let me just start with book club. The 3 adult books that I read for book club, I listened to all on audio. For my mystery book club in the month of May, we discussed The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. And without going into too much detail about this, I was not expecting to enjoy it. And I didn't love it still, but I didn't hate it as much as I thought I might. So let's just leave it at that. And the reason I say all that is because I didn't really enjoy the guest list at all. And I just wasn't sure how I was going to like this one. But it wasn't too bad. There were still plenty of F-bombs. I feel like the language was not as, I should say the language was not as foul as in the guest list. Okay, but then the book that I loved, probably my favorite book of the month, was The Exiles by Christina Baker Klein. A little bit of language in this one, but such a fantastic story. It's historical. It is about some women in Australia, one who was an Aborigines girl who was born there, and a couple of others who were being forced to go there. Highly recommend this book, and it was epic. Then for my book club for June, I went ahead and decided to get this one out of the way. This is The Hamilton Affair by Elizabeth Cobbs. And I was thinking I was okay with it, but then today we had our mystery book club, and one of the other ladies who had also started it and DNF'd it, she mentioned one thing that I'd kind of forgotten about, and I was like, oh yeah, that was kind of but overall, not horrible. If you are a fan of Hamilton, then, you know, you might want to add this to your collection and read it. But I read the Melissa de la Cruz trilogy about Alexander and Eliza, and I think I liked it better than this one. There was just some unnecessary detail in this one, but overall, not horrible. But, you know, if you're a fan of Hamilton, then you might want to pick this one up. And then the two Amish books that I finished for Amish in April. I finished up the trilogy called The Courtship of Nellie Fisher. The first book was The Parting, and the second book is The Forbidden, and the third book is The Longing. At least I hope that's the right order. Yes. These were good. I enjoyed these a little bit more than the Abram's Daughters series that I read last year, mainly because they were historical and they were set in a time in either the 60s or 70s when the Amish church split, and some wanted to stay with the old order ways and others wanted to go to a more evangelical Christian assurance of salvation type of belief, and I really enjoyed that. So when you have a situation like this where you have a church that is very family oriented and it splits, you're going to have some family members on both sides of the issue, and that is one of the things that made this series really good. Of course, there is some romance. There's even a romance where they're on both sides of the issue, things like that. So I found that very interesting, and it is a series or a trilogy that I would recommend. I still think I like The Shunning, or which is the Heritage of Lancaster County, better. That was, I think, one of her, if not her first trilogy, but still, this was good. Okay, so Amish in April is the readathon that I co-host in the month of April. The readathon that I co-host in the month of May is Middle Grade May. This year our theme was Middle Grade Mayhem, and we had our same four hosts from last year, and we decided to each come up with our own theme and then have 3 different prompts that fit our theme. So it just added to the mayhem of the event with all these prompts, and you had to go to each of the hosts to find out their prompts. So I tried to at least read one book that would fit each of the hosts' theme. Now, I only read a total of 3.5 middle grade books for the month. The half of the book is Waterless Mountain by Laura Adams Armour. This is a Newbery winner from the 1930s, and I read this for my Newbery Challenge, but it also counts for Elizabeth Tyree's theme of diaspora, which is a new word for me, but what it refers to is a people or a culture that is being forced or has been forced to move. So she told me that this would count for that theme. This is about a Navajo boy, and it's set in a time before the Navajo had to deal with very much of the white man's influence, but she still said that it would count. So I'm counting it for that, even though I didn't quite finish it. I got about halfway done by the end of the month, and I am on track to get it done within the next few days. My theme was to read something humorous, and for that challenge, I read Premeditated Myrtle. This is by Elizabeth C. Bunce. I read this on the recommendation from Storm Reads, who was also one of the co-hosts. I heard her talking about Premeditated Myrtle and the Myrtle Hardcastle series, I guess a year or two ago, and thought it sounded really good. So I had started this actually in March, but I didn't get it finished. It had to get returned. So I just started it over in the early part of May and really enjoyed it. In fact, I have the second book checked out right now, and I'm hoping to listen to it in June. Then at the end of the month, I decided to pick up this 39 Clues books. This is book 1 in the Cahill Files. It's called Operation Trinity. It's by Clifford Riley. And I picked this up at a library book sale that I went to since getting back from my trip. And then I got home, I did my book haul, I showed it in a book haul and everything, decided to read it, but then I looked on my shelves. I already had another copy, as well as a book that is a bind-up of books 2 and 3 in the same series. So I don't need to keep this one. I will add this probably to my eBay store, or I'll turn it in at the used bookstore where I work for credit, because we don't have a lot of 39 Clues books there, and they would be good to have on the shelf. Anyway, this was very good. It's part prequel, so we get to see Grace Cahill, who is the matriarch of the Cahills. We get to see her as a young person, and she's doing some different missions and quests and things like that, and very interesting, I thought, to see Grace as a younger person. And then my own book here that I really wanted to for sure get read is book 3 in the Randoms trilogy by David Liss, or Lease. It's called Renegades. I wanted to finish this trilogy this year because it's on my Serious About Series list, and also it really meets a lot of the themes and prompts for Middle Grade May, or Middle Grade Mayhem. For one thing, it has a light source, which was one of Storm's themes. It's also humorous, so that fits my theme, and it is about teamwork, which fits Lee's theme. So it was great for Middle Grade May, and now I have finished this trilogy. I can check it off my list, and I would definitely recommend it to you. It is just a super fun science fiction middle grade adventure, and you definitely want to start with the first book, though, which is called Randoms, and just read all the way through the whole trilogy. It's really fun. And then I read for the Follow Us to Fair Acre read-along, which is hosted by Kate Howe. I read the 2 books in May that we were supposed to read in April. So I read Farther Afield. I just bought this on my trip. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to read it because my library didn't have a copy, and I didn't own a copy until I found it on my trip. So I was super excited to find it. Then we also read No Holly for Miss Quinn. This is more of a novella. It's set at Christmas time, so we were to read both of these. And then now for the month of June, I'm reading the 2 books that I was to have read in the month of May. I'm gonna try to kind of read through them a little faster, and then maybe go ahead and at least start the June book, so that maybe by the time we do the July live stream, I'll be caught up. I have no idea if I will be asked to be on it, but I at least want to be caught up enough to watch it live. So hopefully I will be. I also read 3 cozy mysteries. 2 of them were for read-alongs, and 1 was just for fun. The for fun one was a book from the Mrs. Polifax series by Dorothy Gilman. I'll show you a picture of the one I read. It was something like A Palm for Mrs. Polifax, or something like that, which didn't really make a lot of sense according to the subject matter. But anyway, I thoroughly enjoy the Mrs. Polifax series, and I've already listened to a couple more of them in early June, so it is a series I will definitely continue. And then for the read-alongs that I'm participating in conjunction with the Killing Time with Cozies group, one of them is the Southern Sewing Circle read-along by Elizabeth Lynn Casey. We read number 5 for the month of May, because it's a 12-book series, so we're reading 1 a month. This is Dangerous Alterations. Then the other read-along that we're doing, it's kind of in conjunction with Killing Time with Cozies, although the discussions for, I guess, both of these read-alongs are on Melmax Buddy Reads. But we are reading all 3 of the Jen McKinley Cozy Mystery series in publication order. So I am a little bit behind due to my travel and my family history project I was working on in March. But I finally did read book 2 in the Library Lovers Mysteries, called Do or Die. And now I am ready to listen to book 4 in the Cupcake Bakery series, and then I'll come back to book 3 of the Library Lovers. I doubt I will get completely caught up this month, but maybe by the end of July I can be caught up to where I'm supposed to be with all 3 of those series. Okay, so then I had 4 nonfiction books, and one of them has to do with Caldecott illustrators and Caldecott winners, so I'll show you that one in a minute. But the other 3 had to do with organizing, decluttering, things like that, because I have really been in the mood to really work towards those goals. I have had a perpetual goal of getting and staying organized my whole life. Sometimes I get closer to the goal than others, but some days it's just really hard. So I decided to pick up this. This has kind of been on my TBR for a while. It's called The Hoarder in You: How to Live a Happier, Healthier, Uncluttered Life. It's by Dr. Robin Zazio. She was one of the psychologists on the Hoarders TV show. And I have to be frank here and tell you that I did not really enjoy her presence on the show. I felt like she was somewhat condescending to the clients, and even though she may be an expert in hoarding and working with people who are hoarders, I just didn't always care for the way she talked to them. That being said, this book was not narrated by her. So I didn't pick up that vibe when I listened to this book. So it's probably a good thing that she was not the narrator. And the book was actually very well put together. It was not only for hoarders, but people who have hoarding tendencies, people who live with people who are hoarders or who have hoarding tendencies. And I thought it was very well put together. I did enjoy it, and I would recommend it. If you live with a hoarder, or you feel like you are a hoarder, or struggle with not being a hoarder, I feel like that's where I am in my life. I am just trying not to be a hoarder, because I find that I'm kind of a control freak, and also I'm one of those people that kind of has perfectionist tendencies, where I feel like I need to have a big block of time in order to do anything, and really it would just be a 5-minute job. You know, life is really a series of 5-minute jobs, and so you don't need a whole day to do all of those 5-minute jobs at once. You can fit them in anywhere. But trying to tell myself that in the moment is harder. But, you know, I procrastinate decision making when really all around me are plenty of things that I could get rid of. It's just that I want to get rid of them in a certain way. So that's where I, kind of fall in with this. But I did enjoy the book, and if that sounds interesting to you, then you might want to check it out. Then another one that I read, I don't have a physical copy of. I listened to it on audio, and I think it's called Order from Chaos by Jacqueline Paul. I did find this one interesting. It is geared towards people with ADHD, which I am coming to a more and more of a realization that I am probably undiagnosed ADHD. So I did find it very interesting, and I was able to glean a few things from it. Now, I also picked up a really short little book that is not geared to people with ADHD. I don't even remember the name of it. Something about speed cleaning. I'll put the cover here where you can see the book and the title. This was just like a little 30-minute or less audiobook, and it was talking about, how to speed clean your house and all of that. So the idea is that if once you get your house where you want it to be, then it's not that difficult to maintain it. And I get that. But the way the book was worded, she starts out saying, something like, okay, before you can really implement this process, first thing, you need to deep clean your entire home. And she started rattling off this giant list of all the things to do to deep clean your home. Well, she lost me at deep clean your home. Okay, that is way too much for me to try to take in one get-go. I mean, what an insurmountable task that is just for my brain to even conceive. So if you start talking to me about breaking things down into, small chunks and things like that, yeah, that's great. But I wrote a little Goodreads review. I was like, you lost me at deep clean your whole house fast. I was like, nope. And then I had another one that I started, but I did not finish it. I maybe was 13% in, and she started talking about how you should get rid of things that people have given you if they don't fit your lifestyle. Well, I don't have a problem with that at all. Where my disconnect is that she actually said that if someone who gave you a gift asks you about it later and you have gotten rid of it, that you should lie to them and tell them that something happened to it or whatever, like as if to spare them. No, 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 no. People, we do not need to lie to someone to tell them that something happened to the gift they gave us. Her justification was that it was rude for them or not good manners of them to ask you about it anyway. That may be true, but to just out and out advocate lying in a self-help book is not helpful. And I just stopped right then. I was like, no, I am not going to listen to anything that this author has to say. So here's the book. I don't even remember the title of it. It's something about ADHD. But even in that first 13%, I didn't really feel like it was going to be helpful to me anyway. So that was just kind of the last straw to break the camel's back, as they say, because I didn't find it to be a very helpful book anyway. Okay, so then the other nonfiction book that I read has to do with the Caldecott winners. I didn't read this one until the last day of the month. This is a Caldecott celebration, 6 artists and their paths to the Caldecott medal by Leonard S. Marcus. So this book showcases 6 different author-illustrators that are Caldecott medal winners, one from each of 6 decades. I did notice later on Goodreads that there is a newer edition of this that showcases 7 authors. It's the same 6 in this one plus one more. I don't know why they didn't just go ahead and pick 7 other authors, because there's some great author-illustrators that have won the Caldecott medal. I think if you're going to go to the trouble to, to do another book, why not make it completely different? But anyway, this is the earlier one that just has 6. And so we were already reading 4 of these authors. And then I decided to go ahead and pick up the 2 newer books that are featured in this book so that I could at least read all of the books that are featured in this. So before I get into the other Caldecott winners, we read 7 other children's books that are not Caldecott winners. Most of them are for our devotion time that, I've mentioned before. I've been trying to read a Bible story or some kind of, do some kind of devotional with Emily each morning. And we have 3 of these read aloud Bible story books. Now, I could not find our copy of Volume 1. I know we have owned it. I might have passed it on to someone else. So this is the only one our library had. So I did go ahead and check it out. But I have a feeling I'm going to find it somewhere buried at the back of her bookshelf once we're all done with this. But anyway, this is a library copy. This is Volume 1. This is a 5-volume series. And then we own Volumes 3 and 4. And these are just very, very simplified Bible stories. The art is very simplified, but that's still very enjoyable, and I like how they are put together. There's a few things that I don't care for, but still, overall, they are enjoyable. Like, here is the Israelites getting manna off the ground. They're just very enjoyable, quick to read. And I wish that we had the other 2 books in the series. I'm going to keep my eyes out for them so that I can read the others with Emily as well. And these are also award winners. It says here on Volume 1 that it is a C.S. Lewis honor book. And then the Gold Medallion Book Award, it also won. So that's cool. So that was 3 of them. Now, in between those, we read a couple of VeggieTales books. that were just off of our shelves. Both of them are called God Made You Special, but they are different books with different words inside. This book we read not because it is a Caldecott winner, but it is the first in a series, and the Caldecott winner is book 2 in the series. And so we had to read this one first. This is Madeline by Ludwig Bemelmans, and this was really cute. I don't think I had ever read Madeline. Someone, I think in a comment, was telling me that there's maybe 6 books in the series. So we did read book 2, which is Madeline to the Rescue, and I will show you that one in a few minutes. But very enjoyable. I definitely want to get the rest of the Madeline books and read those with Emily because they were super cute. Then I read one other children's book, not with Emily. I just sat here at my desk and read it because it's a book I picked up at a library book sale, and I listed it in my eBay store, and it sold. And as I was getting ready to pack it up and ship it, I thought, I never read this. And so I just sat down and read it. It's called Hello, I'm Johnny Cash, and it is basically a children's biography of Johnny Cash, and it was very good. The artwork is beautiful, and I really enjoyed the book, and I learned a little bit about Johnny Cash. So I did not read that one with Emily. Like I said, I just read it myself before I shipped it off. So I don't have it to show you, obviously, but here's a picture of it. So then now I just need to show you the 35 Caldecott winners that we read. The Caldecott Medal was first given in 1938, and it is still being given today, and we read from 1938 to 1970, not in this order. In fact, 1970 was the first one we read because that's the one that we own, and I might have neglected to order a few from the library in order to have them by May 1st, so I was quickly going through the list thinking, okay, surely we have one of these, and we did. It'll be the last one I show you. So let me start with the earliest one. This is the very first one. We actually used this for our devotion time for several days. This is Animals of the Bible. The illustrations were drawn by Dorothy Lathrop. Text from the Bible was selected by Helen Dean Fish, but the only text in this book is actual scripture from the King James Version of the Bible. Now, I am not about to rate the Bible anything less than 5 stars, but I think I did rate this book 4 stars simply because I felt like there should have been a little more explanation of the scriptures, maybe a little bit of introduction. It was just simply scriptures that included a mention of certain animals, and then those animals were illustrated. However, that being said, this was from 1938, published in 1937, and some people pointed out in their reviews that the Bible was a book that was in probably most homes in the United States at the time. Children were read from it on a daily basis, and so these are going to be verses that a lot of kids, would have already been very familiar with. And to have them illustrated beautifully with these illustrations would probably be a real treat. Now, the illustrations are black and white. So, it would have been nice if there were some in color, but, it was in the middle of the Depression. So, in order to make it affordable, I'm sure that had something to do with it. So I'm not going to give you a lot of details about the rest of these, but I did want to at least mention, a little bit about this one since this is the very first Caldecott winner. All right, the next one is the only one I don't have a physical copy of. It's called May Lee by Thomas Hanforth. It is a book set in Asia, and it was enjoyable. I didn't love it, but, couldn't really identify with it or anything, but it was cute and the illustrations were beautiful, and that's really what the award is for the illustrations. Then the next one is a biography of Abraham Lincoln. This is by Ingrid and Edgar Perrin-Doualer. Am I saying that correct? I don't know. The next one is They Were Strong and Good by Robert Lawson. Make Way for Ducklings by Robert McCloskey. This is one of the few that I had read before and had read with Emily when she was younger. The next one is The Little House by Virginia Lee Burton. Again, when I do the breakdown wrap-ups of each of these by decade. I will open each book. I'll show you some of the illustrations and talk a little bit more about my thoughts on each of the books. Many Moons by James Thurber, illustrations by Louis Slobodkin. The next one is Prayer for a Child. It's by Rachel Field, pictures by Elizabeth Orton Jones. Rachel Field won a Newbery also. The next one is The Rooster Crows, a book of American rhymes and jingles. It's by Maud and Miska Petersham. The next one is The Little Island. I'm going to have to put my glasses on to see some of these. This is by Golden MacDonald, which is Margaret Wise Brown. I'm not really sure why she used a pseudonym for this book and not for some of her others, but anyway, could have been a publishing thing. I'm not sure. Anyway, it was illustrated by Leonard Weisgard. The next one is White Snow, Bright Snow by Alvin Tresselt, illustrated by Roger DeVoyson. The next one is The Big Snow by Berta and Elmer Hayter. The next one is Song of the Swallows by Leo Politi. The next one is The Egg Tree by Catherine Milhouse. The next one is Finders Keepers by Will and Nicholas. They do actually have last names. This one was a hard one to find because I kept looking for them under, like in my library, under the names Will and Nicholas, and they were actually cataloged under their last names, but their last names are not on the cover of the book. So that was kind of confusing. I think we had read this one when Emily was younger, The Biggest Bear. It's by Lind Ward. And then we get to the second book in the Madeline series, Madeline's Rescue by Ludwig Bemelmans. And then we have Cinderella that was translated and illustrated by Marcia Brown. The next one is Frog Went A-Courtin' by John Langstaff, pictures by Fyodor Rozhankovsky. I hope I'm saying that right. The next one is A Tree is Nice. It is by Janice May Udry, pictures by Mark Simont, or Simont. The next one is Time of Wonder by Robert McCloskey. The next one is Chanticleer and the Fox, adapted from the Canterbury Tales and illustrated by Barbara Cooney. The next one is 9 Days to Christmas, A Story of Mexico by Marie Hall Etz and Aurora Labastida. The next one is Babushka and the Three Kings by Ruth Robbins, illustrated by Nicholas Sijakov. The next one is Once a Mouse by Marcia Brown. Then we have The Snowy Day by Ezra Jack Keats. And another one that is probably one of the more famous Caldecott winners. There is a movie of this. This is one of the earlier ones that I remember as well as a child. Where the Wild Things Are, story and pictures by Maurice Sendak. May I Bring a Friend? And I'm going to attempt these names. Beatrice Schenck de Renier, illustrated by Benny Montresor. The next one is Always Room for One More by Saoirse Nick Leotis, illustrated by Noni Hagrogian. I hope I'm saying those right. I did not look up these names ahead of time. My apologies. Sam, Bangs, and Moonshine, written and illustrated by Eveline Drummer Hoff, adapted by Barbara Emberley, and illustrated by Ed Emberley. The Fool of the World and the Flying Ship, a Russian tale retold by Arthur Ransom, pictures by Yuri Shulevitz. And the winner from 1970, I know because we own this copy, Sylvester and the Magic Pebble by William Steig. And then the two newer ones that we read because the illustrators are featured in the Caldecott celebration that I showed you earlier are Jumanji by Chris Van Allsburg and Tuesday by David Weisner. So that is all of the Caldecott winners that we read during the month of May, and I hope you will come back when I do the breakdown of each of those books in their appropriate decade and learn a little bit more about each of the books and what I thought of them, if you care. Throughout the year, we might go ahead and read a few more of them, and then by the month of May in 2024, go ahead and finish up this project. Meanwhile, I hope to be done with all of the Newbery winners by that point as well. Anyway, that's all I read for the month of May. I thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you will leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you've read any of these books, what you thought about them, and let's just chat about whatever you feel like chatting about. So that's all for now. I hope to see you again in another video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.